I'm Jen.
I'm Liz.
And we're Harmless Harlots.
What does that mean?
To us, it means being open to having more than one relationship, however you define it, as long as everyone gives fully informed, enthusiastic consent.
It's also an homage to our poly Bible, the Ethical Slut, which we recommend if you want to learn more.
We are enthusiasts, not experts in this field, so if you want to learn and explore along with us, we give you our knowing consent to come along. Welcome to another episode of Harmless Harlots. Today, I first wanted to start with kind of addressing something I said in the last episode. I wanted to point out that polyamorists, at least myself and Liz, do not want to abolish monogamy per se. We just think that it's kind of like we were talking about with the matriarchy, patriarchy yesterday. Having a polyamoristic, friendly society is not like monogamous, normative society where we're trying to oppress the other one. We just want you to recognize the societal forces that are affecting you so you can have authentic relationships.
Yeah, I think a good parallel is this story I was reading on Reddit the other day about a gender counselor, I believe it was, and they have all of their clients, regardless of whether they're cis or trans, really dig into their gender identity and question, like, what does it mean to me to identify as a male or a female, regardless of what you were assigned at birth. And even if at the end of that process, you know, you're still cisgendered and you realize, like, yes, I really do identify with the gender I was assigned at birth. It's a more meaningful identity if you go through that process of questioning it. So I think kind of on that same line, Jen and I are big advocates of questioning the way you do relationships. And even if that results in you still saying, yeah, I think I'm monogamous and I want to continue searching for one partner and that one partner will be my only partner, romantically, sexually, whatever, that's totally fine. But I think thinking through whether that's what you really, really want can make that decision all the more meaningful.
Yeah. So I guess it's also, I remember what you said one time, Liz, where you were like, when the gays were first coming out, well, I guess not first, but like, you know, the thing that the gays would say is like, we're not trying to turn everyone gay. Everyone's not going to turn gay. We just want rights. Like, that's all we want.
And then everyone did turn gay.
So we're not trying to turn you polyamorous per se. We're just hoping you do a little self-exploration and maybe you discover you're not strictly monogamous. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, I think there definitely is, as ideas become more acceptable, more people, you know, will go with them. But that's not like, I don't think we turned anybody gay or we're turning anybody poly. I think the verbiage of turn maybe is wrong there. I think what it more is that when you are freer to accept, you know, new parts of yourself or practice new relationship styles, you're more likely to do so than, you know, if society shuns them. Because I think a lot of people, you know, there are people who are so gay, bless them, that they cannot be straight. You know, those are the people who were going to the underground clubs in the 80s and stuff because they just could not be straight. But I think, again, everything's on a spectrum. So a lot of people that I think, if it was totally acceptable to be gay, would choose to be gay, are also capable of, you know, acting as straight people, but they only do that because it's what society enforces. So as it became more acceptable to be gay, it's not that those people turned gay, it's that they always kind of were. It's just now it was okay. And I think on the same vein, more people will be poly when that's okay.
Yes, I agree. And that is what I'm striving for. The second thing I kind of wanted to address was, we talked a little bit in the last episode about kind of who we were in kind of relation to polyamory and our experience with, you know, exploring and discovering our own relationship styles that worked best for us. But I guess I also wanted to acknowledge that Lizzie and I obviously come from a very similar background, since we were raised by the same parents in the same household, but we also are white, middle-class Americans. So we just wanted to acknowledge that we are one perspective, and while we are going to strive to get as many diverse perspectives as possible and try to be as inclusive to all communities as possible, we will fail. So however you can be gracious, / if we say something and you want to correct us, feel free to give us that feedback. We're here to learn and grow together.
Yeah, the beauty of being sisters is that we both know each other very well, but the the con of us being sisters is we do come from the least possible diverse background, in that our backgrounds are almost identical in every way. So
yeah, so that's all the serious stuff, all the disclaimers we wanted to get out of the way. So for this episode, last episode we were discussing the book Sex at Dawn, which gives a very anthropological view of kind of the history of monogamy and polyamory and different relationship styles and family structures throughout human history. In this episode, I wanted to try something new and fun, which I'm calling Poly Productions, which is basically critiquing and creating more polycentric media than shows up in mainstream. Because Lizzie and I have this theory.
Jennifer and I like to play this game where whenever there's a movie and the plot is just this stupid monogamous, quote unquote love triangle where it's like, I'm a girl and I like these two boys and they both like me. OMG, what do I do? We're like, how easily would this be resolved if we just lived in a polyamorous community where it's like, I don't have to choose. It is just the norm to have multiple partners and this is no longer an issue. Like, my favorite example is Bella from Twilight, which I think is a garbage movie, but Jennifer actually apparently enjoys watching multiple times.
Listen. I enjoy it not because it is quality cinema, because it is nostalgic, and because it is that certain type of bad that is enjoyable when you're watching it with your friends. That's drinking fair. A glass of wine. Okay.
That's fair. So the Bella from Twilight, right? I'm sure we're all familiar with the plot to some extent, but basically Bella is in love with both Edward, who is a vampire, and Jacob, who is a werewolf. And there was this whole thing of, are you Team Jacob or Team Edward? When I was in high school and these movies were coming out, and people were like, oh, do you want Bella to get with Edward or Jacob? And people would argue about like, oh, Jacob is better because he's actually alive. And it got weird. But anywho, it's so dumb because I am team both Edward and Jacob because they both supplied different parts of Bella's needs. Like there was one scene in the movie where they were like on this mountain and Bella was super cold and Edward was there, but Edward had no body heat and couldn't keep Bella warm. So Jacob was like, I will snuggle her because like she needs body heat to live. And it was this whole dramatic thing where like Edward gave Jacob permission to do that. And then like Jacob cuddled her and she lived. And it's like, why does this need to be a thing? Like, Jacob provides needs that Edward cannot, and Edward provides some needs for Bella that Jacob cannot. Like, por que no los dos, bitches? Like, come on. Anyway, so I was team Edward and Jacob, and that's my take.
You mentioned things being weird and strange, and you know how this love triangle, quote unquote triangle, because it's not really a triangle because Edward and Jacob have nothing going on. Anyway, but how Stephanie Myers, the author, resolves this love triangle is that...
Oh, this is the creepiest part of it.
Spoiler, Bella ends up having a child by Edward, and then Jacob... Oh, I forget, like, pair bonds or, like, imprints with their child, and, like, the whole thing is like, oh, he was just in love with Bella because of her child, and it's like, what? This is so uncomfortable. It's so
it like, sexualizes children in a way that I'm so uncomfortable with, and ugh.
But because polyamory was not a viable solution, she was like, you know what? I will do pedophilia over polyamory.
That is how much people are married to the idea of monogamy, pun intended.
So yes, so that is what this episode's going to be about. It is going to be critiquing and creating media that is more poly-friendly. Not that, you know, there's great monogamous media out there as well, but there's just not enough poly content, and there is lots of bad monogamous media that we could fix with a little bit of polyamory, a little sprinkle of polyamory.
I'm glad you brought that up because it just makes me think of the insane lengths people will go to avoid polyamory, like particularly in books and media and stuff. Authors will come up with these crazy scenarios just so that like the monogamous ending is the happy one, because like it isn't a lot of the time. Like, a lot of the time, monogamy results in hurt feelings and like several parties being left very unhappy. So authors have to come up with these, clever plot twists and stuff so that there actually can be a happy ending, when it's like the easiest happy ending would just be polyamory. Why don't we just do that? We wouldn't need to have people fall in love with babies if we could just be polyamorous.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what we're saying. Okay, so for our first session of Poly Productions, I wanted to look at this song that is one of my favorite songs. But what inspired this and what often happens to me is that I love these songs because they're catchy, but they often are not very polyamoristic. So the first song I want to talk about is called Giddy On Up by Laura Bell Bundy, and it is a great song, very catchy. I learned it from Just Dance, the video game, if you don't know it.
Jennifer plays Just Dance all the damn time, and in our family she holds like all the 5-star records and nobody can break her high score, and it's really annoying, but continue.
And that is a throne I shall never
Abdicate.
Abdicate. I shall never abduct this throne.
One of us has a college degree. I'm going to hold that over your head as long as I can, which is the next couple of weeks.
4 more months. Anyway, so the premise of this song, it's kind of the very stereotypical country song where there's this woman and she is talking to her boyfriend / husband, it's not specific, and she catches him cheating and she confronts him, and it's called Giddy On Up, Giddy On Out, because she's like, get out, we're done. And so the thing that I think is particularly interesting about this song is that at the beginning of the song, she's describing how all the clues that tipped her into how she knew he was cheating. And a lot of the things are like, you've been smiling a lot, you've been really happy, you've been peppy, and that's suspicious. And
wouldn't want to be too happy, now would we?
And it's just so funny because it's that's sad. The fact that your partner is happy, A, makes you suspicious, and B, ends up being something that you just can't be happy about. That's just so messed up to me. And so I guess before we get into, taking the song down, I do want to say, even in polyamorous settings, cheating can happen. You can lie and you can be a terrible partner. But the point of ethical non-monogamy is that these relationships are built on open communication, expressing your needs, and, having multiple partners in order to fulfill your needs. So I'm not saying that cheating isn't bad and that it doesn't happen even in polyamoristic settings, but that's not the point of ethical non-monogamy, and we could avoid a lot of this if people were just more ethically non-monogamous.
Yeah, polyamorous people can be just as shitty as monogamous people can, but monogamous people, a lot of the ways in which monogamous people can be shitty would be eliminated if we were more comfortable with polyamory.
Yeah. So I know this song, in talking about I guess this one doesn't specifically mention jealousy, but it kind of has, that tone. And I know that, Lizzie, you wanted to talk about compersion.
I do.
In relation to polyamory. So
compersion is a word that does not technically exist in the English language yet, because language has not kept up with the evolution of relationships, and it is very... What's the heteronormative word but for monogamy? Is monogonormative? Is that what we would
I have no idea.
I don't know. Language in English is very monogonormative, monogocentric, IDK. We don't have good verbiage for polyamorous individuals, but the closest word to compersion that we have in another language is mudita. And mudita roughly translates to sympathetic joy, I believe. And you can learn more about this in one of the...
Multiamory.
Yes, in one of the Multiamory podcast episodes, they speak to a woman. She does a lot of research on compersion. But essentially, what compersion is feeling happiness when other people are happy instead of jealousy. So when your partner meets somebody new and has a crush on somebody, instead of feeling threatened and being like, oh my gosh, this person is going to replace me, they don't have enough love for both of us, instead you're like, oh, I'm so happy my partner is happy, I'm happy they have found this new relationship, yada yada yada. So when I first heard this episode of Multiamory on compersion, it was like everything just fell into place with my emotions, because I have always said I am like a little bit of a sociopath in that I don't feel jealousy like ever. Like, there have been very limited times in my life, like less than a handful of times, when I can say I felt jealousy.
I'm not sure you know what sociopath is.
What's the one where you don't experience the full range of emotions? Isn't that sociopath, or what is that?
I mean, I suppose, but I feel like sociopaths still could experience jealousy. I don't know. That's just an interesting way for you to put it.
Whatever the word is for, I don't think I experience the full range of human emotions the way that most humans do, in that I don't think I feel jealousy in situations where most people do. Like, particularly, I'll just use the example of my sister, who has done everything in life better than I have, and I have every reason to be insanely jealous of her. And I'm not. Like, I feel great pride around my sister. Like, I brag about my sister all the damn time. And, like, I remember, like, when I was in college and Jennifer was winning all of these sports and going to state in things where I sucked, and like got into a way better college than I did, and just traveled more places and stuff, and people have asked me, like, aren't you so jealous? And I'm like, no, I'm fucking proud of that bitch. Are you kidding me? Like, why would no? So and in the same thing with relationships, where when I was in college and I would be hooking up with someone, I remember this one time, this guy was like super nervous and like took me out to a nice dinner and sat me down and was like, look, I met somebody else and I really want to see where things go with them. And I think I want to stop sleeping with you so I can pursue things with this girl. I'm so sorry. He was so apologetic. He was so nervous. And I was like, that's fantastic. Like, I'm so happy. Like, I'm genuinely so happy for you. Like, I'm not sad. Like, of course I liked sleeping with him and I was sad, to not be able to continue to do that. But like, I was genuinely happy for them. Like, and I don't think that's the normal human response. Like, I think most women would have been jealous and upset. And like, I just don't feel that way. I don't know. So this concept of compersion, when I listened to this podcast, I was like, that is me. Someone made a word for what I am. I get it. Yeah, I just genuinely don't experience jealousy. I just want everybody to be happy. And if that's not with me, then cool. Like, why? Less pressure for me, dog. Like, great, I'm glad you can find fulfillment somewhere else. Like, I don't know, man.
Yeah, I can agree, and I have a similar story, but I guess the first thing that comes to mind is I was talking with my friend Leah again, and I was talking about, how I really value authenticity in relationships, and how, similar, I was like, if a relationship doesn't work out, that's fine. It's an issue of compatibility. And she does not have a great relationship with her family. She said to me, she was like, well, I think you can say that because you have a great relationship with your parents and your siblings. And so if, you're in a relationship and it breaks off, you at least have someone in your life who you can like rely on or like call when you're in the hospital or something. Whereas like she didn't feel that she had like any sort of support network to fall back on. So she was like, even if the relationship isn't like perfect or I don't feel like I can be my authentic self, I prefer to, stay in it just because for the sense of security.
And this is why we all need to live in communes.
That is one solution, but I do just want to, recognize that like, yeah, there are a lot of complicating factors and in your individual situations. But the thing with jealousy specifically in the polyamory community, they, will often say that jealousy is kind of like an indicator. Maybe it's indicating that something is wrong with your relationship. A lot of times the narrative is that jealousy often is a signal of one of your insecurities and is kind of an opportunity for you to grow. Not to say that your partner isn't, maybe doing something wrong, but, you should kind of look at yourself and tell your partner how you're feeling so you can address that.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people, I think jealousy stems from almost just from monogamy itself, like from this idea that like there is one person out there for me and I must find them. And so I think that puts a lot of pressure on like every relationship of like, if you really love somebody and you have this monogamous mindset of like, if I am in love, this is the only person I can be in love with, then if that person starts to stray, you're like, oh, fuck, no, this is my one chance. Like, I can't, and you freak out. And I think if we took some of that pressure off of like, there exists this one singular, perfect, compatible person for you, then I think people would be less prone to feeling jealousy.
Yeah. My friend Danny, who is monogamous, but I'm slowly converting to polyamory, whenever I talk about it with him, he's like, I fully admit that I could not be in a polyamorous relationship because I would be too jealous, and I admit and recognize that it comes from my own insecurities, but I don't think I could surmount them. And so, what I tell him to that is like, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not your therapist, I don't know what to tell you, bud. But he asked me one time, he was like, do you not feel jealousy? And so I think I'm similar to Liz, where like, I wouldn't say it's an emotion that I felt strongly or a lot. And as I mentioned before, I haven't been in a lot of very traditionally quote unquote romantic relationships. But the best story that comes to mind is when I was in high school and I asked one of my guy friends, Kelsey, to prom, and he said yes. And I was super excited because we were just going to have a lot of fun.
I remember this. Oh, I was more mad than you were when this happened, but keep telling your story. I was more upset than you were.
But so like 2 weeks later, he started dating this other girl. And so he came to me and he was like, listen, Jen, I really want to go to prom with her. Like, it's my senior year. I really just want to go with her and like spend this time with her. And I was like, that's a bummer, but like, if you don't want to go with me, then like, why would I want to go with you? Like, that would just be bad. And so like, I could have reacted with feeling bad about myself or like being angry at him. And like, there's arguments to be made that like he did rescind on a thing.
I was angry at him. He was your best friend. I was mad.
It wasn't that close to prom. I did have time to find another date, not my first pick, but like at the time it was like, I don't know, like if I had reacted in the traditionally jealous way, I would have like either felt bad about myself or like in the typical like monogamous movie style, like tried to break them up. But I mean, he was my friend, so I wanted him to be happy. We broke off our prom date because he found someone who he would rather go with. I don't know, like I there was nothing about me that I wanted to change that A, would have helped, and B, that I wanted to change. She was perfectly nice, and I think they're still together, so like, yeah. Good for them. But like, I didn't feel jealous because like, I don't know, I was like, I'm so cool, he just found someone he's more compatible with. And that's the thing I like to stress, which is like, it's not competition, it's compatibility. So I don't know, I also rarely experience jealousy.
Yeah, you responded to that in the appropriate way. I was upset on your behalf. I was mad enough for the both of us.
Yeah, so yeah, that was a lot. I wanted to talk about jealousy and compersion. All right, welcome to our second part of Poly Productions, where Lizzie and I are going to be watching a movie. We're going to try to specifically find ones that are, kind of more love triangle centric, since those are the ones that could so easily be remedied with more ethical non-monogamy tactics. And so the first one we picked, because we found it easily, is Tall Girl, which came out in 2019 and I think was just a direct to Netflix thing. I heard people talking about it, I think, when it first came out, and I don't know, people had weird reactions to it. I'm not sure why. The internet said it also had a love triangle, so we're just going to watch the movie and give you guys our commentary on it. Here we go. Had you heard of this movie before, Liz?
Yeah, I'd heard of it. It was actually recommended to me by a coworker of mine who is actually, so the plot of this movie is a tall girl, shock. And in the movie, she's like 6'1.5", and my coworker is also a female who's 6'1.5", and she also like shot up in like middle school, I think. So she really liked the movie because she was like, this is my life. I had a couple of people in the queer community also say it was kind of nice because it was like, it resonated with a lot of queer people of like, not fitting in and not being able to hide who you are in any way as much as you would like to be able to, and that sort of thing. So I also heard after it came out, people didn't really like it. Like, it wasn't executed very well, but like the plot was like a good idea. So I don't know, we'll see.
You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of on like Tinder profiles where guys are like, I'm 6'2" if that matters.
I literally, oh my gosh. So I've been with a couple of men who were shorter than me, and one of them in particular kept asking me if it bothered him, if it bothered me that he was shorter than me, and I was like, no, I literally don't care. But after like the third time, I was like, it doesn't bother me, but I'm starting to think it bothers you, because you won't drop it. We only hooked up a couple of times, and then I remember I ran into him at a gathering of some sort like a year or so later, and literally, I kid you not, we were sitting at the bar. I was talking to a guy, and he was sitting on the other side of me talking to a girl, and at one point, he literally turned over in the middle of, like, both of us were trying to, like, pick up the respective people that we were talking to, but he turned around because this girl was also taller than him, and he was like, hey, Lizzie, will you just, like, tell this girl that, like, it's not a big deal when guys are shorter than them? And I was like, oh my God, are you seriously still on this? Like, why do you care so much? Like, I don't think it bothers the girls. I think you need to come to terms with it, my dude. Like, geez.
Yeah, I think I was also having conversation with, like, our brother and Leah, and we are talking about, like, if we cared if people, were shorter or taller than us. And I'm 5'8", which puts me above average for women. And Leah's like, I don't know, 5'2" or something. She's short. So her finding someone shorter than her would be a bit of a challenge, but not necessarily for me. And for me, it's like, I mean, I've never been, explicitly asked out by someone who is shorter than me, but like, I also just like, I don't know. It doesn't matter. It doesn't like repulse me or anything. Like, oh.
I do know some people who like that is like a big thing for them. Like, oh, I would never date a guy who was shorter than me. And it's like, why? Like, I don't know. It is a thing for some people, but it does not make sense to me.
Yeah. All right. We'll watch it and see how it goes. So, for people who have not seen this movie, the premise of the movie is that there is a tall girl who feels ostracized for her height, and she falls in love with a really tall foreign exchange student who unfortunately is dating a very popular girl in her school. So there's a bit of a love triangle there with this really popular girl whose name is Kimmy and the tall girl going after the foreign exchange student. And then the tall girl also has a best friend who is a guy who has brown hair and is shorter than her, and he wants to date her, but she doesn't want to date him. So the second love triangle is that the exchange student and the best friend both eventually fall in love with the tall girl. And so we have two love triangles, hijinks ensue. And now we're going to watch it and review it. Okay, in this scene, she's turning down her friend because he's short, and she's like, that will call attention. And it just reminds me at the end of Princess Mononoke, the anime, when the girl who's raised by wolves is with the guy who was not raised by wolves. And she was like, I am kind of into you, but I also am still super racist against humans, so I will not date you.
Yep. And I like how that's just like an okay ending. They're like, yep, makes sense. See you later. Humans are trash. You're correct. I respect your decision. Goodbye.
Okay, so now in this scene, it is the tall girl with her older sister who is older but shorter. Haha. So the sister is making an argument that that the tall girl shouldn't pursue the exchange student because he'll be too desirable, which has not been, in my experience, necessarily the case with exchange students. I thought she was going to say, oh, because then he'll move away and then you'll be heartbroken.
That's what I thought.
And my counter argument to that was going to be, that's just another addition to your polycule. And next time you're in Sweden, you got a place to stay.
Exactly.
All I'm saying.
See, another reason I don't like this best friend character is he's like, oh, I'm so happy she's miserable. Yes, this is what we need. She needs to be miserable, so she settles for me. Settle for me. Why don't you
I think his
me?
thing is also, he is very jealous. And like, bro, if she doesn't like you and she likes someone else, like, that's A, nothing against you necessarily, and B, like, just be happy for her. Okay, in this scene that we are watching now, a bunch of girls just went and sat at the hot guy's table, and then one girl chased them all off, and the best friend character was like, we have a winner, which is just enforcing the stereotype that, like, love is a competition. It does not have to be a competition. We can all win.
As long as monogamy is the only option, it is a competition.
But it doesn't have to be.
Correct. If we normalized ethical non-monogamy, we would not have this hyper-competitive view on love that is unhealthy and destructive to society, quite frankly. Also, just side note, can we stop casting 25-year-olds like they're high school students? Because these people are not 16. He might be 16, but the rest of them...
Well, in, what was it, Call Me By Your Name, and that one kid played like a 17-year-old, but he was actually 22.
Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, with that he had to, because he was basically filming porn for the movie. You have to at least be 18.
He was a skinny, scrappy little thing.
Timothy Chalamet is very skinny, scrappy little thing.
You know what I would really stand is if they just took a total twist and the Swedish guy got together with the little brown hair guy. I would support
He
that.
has not established his sexuality yet. He very well could be gay.
He looks open to it.
Actually, this reminds me of a very interesting study. On Netflix, they have this short mini series called Sex Explained, and for part of it, they talk about this science of like attraction. And there's a country where AIDS is really prevalent, and they showed a bunch of men various silhouettes of women at varying sizes and asked them which ones they found the most attractive, and they found the heavier ones more attractive because being really skinny was a sign that you had AIDS and were like sickly and gonna die, so they weren't really attracted to the skinny ones. But then they took a few of those men who had moved to a different country in like Europe, and like 3 years later showed them the same silhouettes and stuff, and then they were like, oh yeah, ultra skinny, that's what's super attractive, because that's like what the culture deemed as attractive. So a lot of attraction really is culturally prescribed.
Okay, so we've got two love triangles going on with two girls after Sweet God and two guys kind of after Blonde Girl. So this is where the plot, Kimmy, sassy, mean girl in this thing, was like, you're moving into my man, stay away from him. So here's all we're saying. Like, we could just...
Sharesies.
The movie could end right here.
But it can't, Jen, because someone has to win. This is monogamy nation. I do appreciate that the dad character is playing more of the traditionally mother figure, where he's like really invested in making his daughter happy.
Yeah. So this is another thing where like, so the blonde guy is inviting the girl over to watch a movie even though he has a girlfriend. And so like this is a thing in like with monogamy that I feel is just like, there's also this thing where like you can't be friends with the opposite sex, and that's just so sad.
So dumb.
It's like I could never be friends with like a guy ever again. That would be just terrible, like awful. And so now little best friend dude is going to literally ruin his friendship just because he can't be romantically involved with her.
But Jen, friendships are meaningless. The only thing that matters is one romantic partnership.
Yeah, I could definitely talk for a long time about how, and I think the sentiment is growing, or maybe just in all the circles I'm, in, but like why the fact that we like prioritize romantic relationships is so wild. Like all relationships should have whatever weight you give them, romantic, platonic, whatever. And like I can also talk more about how I don't really believe in the existence of romance.
Jennifer is aromantic, and one day she will come to terms with it.
That's not necessarily true. I just think that if you take away the sex part, I don't really know what romance is besides really deep emotional connection, which is just something you would have with friends.
Because you are aromantic.
And see, if she had a polyamorous mindset, she could pull both of them right there, and while the three of them are watching a movie, and just have that good old three-way.
This is the perfect setup for a threesome. Missed opportunities. So in this scene, the main character and the main love interest are having a conversation, and the main love interest is currently dating this girl, Kimmy, who the main character thinks is so much hotter than her, and yada, yada, yada. And the guy is revealing that Kimmy is super insecure that the main character is going to steal him, while the main character is like, no, she's so much better than me. And like, we're getting at the root of like jealousy just stems from extreme insecurity that is all completely unwarranted because everybody thinks like they're uglier, and now we're cheating. Now we're just cheating. All right, this constitutes, this is not ethical non-monogamy. This is straight up cheating is what's happening right now. But the overarching point is that jealousy stems from insecurity, and this is not ethical non-monogamy in any way. They are just full on cheating on this girl. All right.
But like, I just feel like if there wasn't, enforced monogamy, there would also be less insecurity because it would be much less likely that you could lose your position because it wouldn't be such a finite thing.
100%.
So the tall girl character just said, the other girls shouldn't be threatened by me because I'm barely a woman, which is, sad that she thinks that, but also just like I want to talk about how like the concept of woman is just completely a social construct, because like sure there's like physical components but also just like behavioral components. That's why I don't believe in sexuality, because if you say I'm into men, what does that mean? Does that mean you're into penis? Does that mean you're into people who perform the male gender? The fact that she does not feel like she is a woman just proves that it is a social construct.
Also, like, the construct of the female and male identity are so fragile, because this woman literally just has one trait that is mildly not associated with females. Like, she's tall and women tend to be shorter. So she has one not female trait and she's like, oh, now I'm barely a woman. Like, these identities we've constructed are so ridiculously fragile.
And kind of like you said, Liz, in the first episode, like now the Swede guy has to feel so guilty for cheating, which he did, and he should, like, you know, not have done that. But also, like,
Yeah, no, he's absolutely in the wrong here.
yes, but also because he probably doesn't even know that polyamory is like a real thing. Like, it's just a tragedy because, like, they could all just be so much happier, but they're stuck in these like unhappy situations that we literally like we do this to ourselves is all I'm saying. Leah is watching Bridgerton right now, and it's just like all this like torture and pain we put ourselves through is self-inflicted as a society, and it's just so tragic.
The other thing I think that goes with this is a lot of ethical non-monogamy is being really open and honest about your feelings. And so in this scene, what's happening right now is two of the men who are both in love with the same woman are having a conversation, but one of the men has not admitted that he is in love with that woman. And because of that, this conversation is just like he's literally like hiding tears. And I think if this man had told the other one that he had feelings for the woman, like a long time ago, I think a lot of this pain could have been avoided, because like this dude literally just wants to be his friend. And like I think if he knew he had feelings for the main girl, he would have, like, I don't know, helped them get together or like at least not kissed her. But since he's like lying about what he feels, we're just gonna get into this whole messy situation that could have been avoided if we had been honest about our feelings. Nobody is behaving ethically at this point.
Which is why we need to educate people about polyamory.
Literally. All of the incentives that have caused all of these characters to behave in non-ethical manners stem from monogamy, but it's only because of the society in which you have been raised.
And so now Tall Girl is like, if I show interest in another guy, I'll make Tall Guy jealous, which is just not ethical way to use another human being to make someone else jealous. That's just bad. Just bad.
Monogamy turns people into monsters.
I saw a TikTok today that was like the trend with like, you know, tell me you're this without saying you're this. And it was like, tell me you're cheating on your girlfriend without telling me you're cheating on your girlfriend. And the Stitch response was just like, are the straight people okay? Like, are the monogamous people okay?
I worry about them.
So the characters are going to an escape room, and I went to one while I had an internship over the summer in Argentina, and I went with an Argentinian friend and another friend from my school, and they put us in this room, and it literally just looked like the sketchy ass place, like bare walls, single light bulb, like a ratty foam mattress on the ground, and we were like, are we about to get murdered? Like, are we actually not going to escape from this room?
Also, I don't know if you caught this, Jen, because we were talking in this conversation, but to go to that escape room thing, she ditched her actual best friend. So again, we are emphasizing romantic relationships over true friendships, and now she's going to lose her one like true source of support because all she cares about is romantic relationships.
Oh God. She was like, I kissed the other guy to make you jealous, and the guy was like, yeah, that worked. I approve of that plan.
Good job.
Of you just shitting all over this other guy's heart in order to get me back.
Monogamy incentivizes horrible behavior. I like how the older sister is the one pointing out how terrible monogamy is.
Yeah, but she just said the guy's breaking up with the girl to be with me, which I feel terrible about. And it's like, if he has the right and the autonomy to choose his partners, like, why should you feel bad about that? He's just exercising his autonomy. Like, oh God. But see, here we're having a good moment where the sisters are having a moment emphasizing, non-romantic relationships. They're important. So maybe she is, having a little growth in that area. This movie is actually about us, Liz.
I know. I was just going to say, I'm like, Jen, it's us.
I'm not that much. How much taller am I than you? You're 5'6"?
I'm 5'6", you're 5'8", so only 2 inches. You're my big little sister. I thoroughly enjoy this older sister character, and I do think it's because I identify with her quite a bit.
Now that I did say that, I am much more like tall girl, and you are much more like the other sister.
I very much identify with this older sister character.
Short dude is going to have the best emotional growth in this film.
We're looking at some character development.
Okay, so I mean, I appreciate. So here, the best friend character and the girl who has been pining after him, she asked him to the dance, and he was like, "I would go with you, but I'm in love with someone else." So like, kudos to him for being honest. But also, if we were in a polyamorous setting, that wouldn't be an issue. It's just so dumb because like we do have to rank and choose people, and he's like, "You're not number one, so I can't dedicate any time to you." That's wild. And the girl just had a very good reaction because he was like, "You should hate me," and she was like, "I don't." What a very healthy response. She gets award for most emotionally mature. He gets
Honestly.
the award for most character development. I also have a prediction that like the end of this movie is she just dies of like her heart exploding because that's what the dad was worried about in the beginning.
The dad was like, "I'm just concerned about like truly health things. I don't want you to have joint pain, baby girl." I do appreciate this dad character.
I think you are right that the girl's crying because the Swede dude was bad boyfriend, and the dad is like coming to her and just being like, "I love you." And so I do think you're right, Liz, that he is, I guess, what you would stereotypically call, playing more of the mother role. But I do like that, like, even though he is being more effeminate, and he is a bit of comic relief, I don't think he is as much as like other movies have definitely played up like effeminate men being comedic relief. So, I guess the movie gets points for that.
Yeah, I think they did try to be progressive in kind of switching the traditional parental roles. Like the father is the more emotionally intelligent one. I identify with this older sister character so much.
What I also really like is that this older sister is this like beauty pageant girl, but they didn't make her a bitch. That was just the thing she did, but she was actually a good character in this movie, like kind of, turning the stereotype of like beauty pageant people are awful.
You can be pretty and a good person.
So,
okay.
I mean, overall, I thought it was interesting. So there was 2 love triangles because there were 2 guys after the tall girl and then 2 girls after the tall guy. So I thought that was interesting, which just means the movie could have doubly been resolved with, ethical monogamy.
Yes, ethical non-monogamy.
Yeah. Ethical monogamy and ethical non-monogamy.
Would have been better than what they did.
But ethical non-monogamy would have been easier for all of these poor people.
What they did was non-ethical monogamy.
So yeah, we're not saying that like polyamory is for everyone. It could just probably help a lot of people be a lot happier,
I think what sticks out to me in watching movies from the perspective of being polyamorous is just that, often we talk about how like capitalism incentivizes really shitty human behavior. I think monogamy also incentivizes really shitty human behavior. Like when people, when you're told you only get one and that's your one and that's it, people get hyper competitive and just shitty, and they prioritize this one special romantic relationship over their arguably much more important friendships. And it just takes these people who are otherwise great humans and it turns them into dirt bags who are just after this one romantic relationship. And it's like, oh, guys.
No, I think that's a really good point because like the whole thing with the Swedish guy character was that he started out as this super nice dude, but he just didn't have the tools or the training to deal with being in love with 2 people at the same time. And so he made a bunch of terrible and like non-ethical decisions because he just didn't there are no support systems for people who, want to be non-monogamous. But I mean, both capitalism and monogamy, I think, came about at the same time with the advent of agriculture, which we talked about a little bit in the last episode about how agriculture was kind of the beginning of the breakup of hunter-gatherer societies and more polyamorous relationship structures. So I do think, like, I hate to use this word, but I do think that capitalism and monogamy are just more unnatural for humans, and not in the sense of like, that's unnatural and you should do like, ugh, but just in the sense of like, we're geared to be these social communal creatures, and individualistic societies and relationship structures just like don't make sense with how we humans lived for a very long time. And I think it does turn us into very shitty people.
All of the characters started off as like really innocent, nice humans. And then, yeah, you're right. They just didn't have the tools they needed to know how to handle having romantic attraction for multiple people at the same time. And it just screwed everybody over.
Yeah, well, I mean, except for the best friend character who was originally in love with Tall Girl, because he went from, you know, being this very jealous person because the girl wasn't interested into him, to like eventually growing to respect her autonomy, which in the end, quote unquote, made her fall for him because she was like, oh, look, you're a better person now. So be a better person and people will like you.
So confidence is the most attractive trait in a person. I have said this before. I will say it again. Confidence is the most attractive trait in a person. And once people learn to be secure in themselves without, you know, validation from external forces, then they're ready to have external forces because they don't, that's not where they're deriving their validation from. As long as you're super insecure and deriving your validation from other people, which is just super unstable and impractical, it's not going to be healthy for you. It's going to be a lot of pressure for them. It's just...
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I saw this tweet that was like it was like, stop telling people that they'll never be loved until they love themselves. Yeah. And I was like, it's not that. I do think that like other people can fall in love with people who don't love themselves. I just don't think that love will be satisfying until you love yourself, because, you know, it is possible that that other person can change or even, you know, just die. And then where will you be? And you'll always be seeking out that person for validation. So it's not that you won't be loved, but you won't be satisfied until you love yourself.
I know exactly the tweet string you're talking about. And I think the takeaway is that, like, I'm not saying if you're not confident, you're unlovable. Because, like, if you're lacking confidence, like, that, you know, sometimes it's entirely not your fault. Like, there's other things going on and stuff, external forces, whatever. But if you're not confident, you're not unlovable. But if you're not confident, you also shouldn't be seeking to fix that problem with other people. Like, you need to figure that out for yourself before an external relationship can be like healthy and satisfying.
Yeah. And you know, we're saying this very easily, like, oh, just love yourself. And like, we recognize that takes a lot of work. Like, it'll be a long process, but we're just saying it will probably, I don't know, in my opinion, that's at the root of a lot of relationship issues of just like, you know, before, like, I don't know, just people dating in high school always baffled me, because it's like, I've barely got myself together. Like, I don't know how you think you can deal with another person's baggage at this point. Like, I've still got so much to deal with. So I don't know.
So earlier you and I were talking about how we both have the same background and we were both raised by the same parents and stuff. And I think we've had conversations about this before, but one of the effects of that is that our parents raised all four of us to be just like exceedingly confident individuals. Mother and I have had many conversations about how she had this theory when she was parenting us that like she had met people who were too confident and like they were cocky and kind of assholes, but they were also really happy and successful. And she had met people who were super insecure, and a lot of people often liked them and like they were nice, but they were also miserable. So she made a very conscious decision that she was going to raise all of her kids to be ridiculously confident because then they would be successful and happy.
That's hilarious. I have never heard that before.
I would like to believe that the four of us did not turn out to be assholes. I think we're still very nice people, but we are all just oozing ridiculous amounts of confidence.
That is hilarious. She never told me that.
I think a lot of our successes are attributable to the fact that we are all ridiculously confident in ourselves. And I mean, not to say, like, we've all struggled with imposter syndrome. Like, that's a thing everybody has. And like, we've all had moments of like feeling insecure. But I think the four of us on average are a lot more confident than the average individual, and that has helped us in a variety of aspects.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think, yeah, so Tall Girl, it's an okay, very cringy movie, but overall has decent messages. Again, maybe we'll make up a metric to score these movies. Again, could have been resolved a lot sooner with polyamory. I just what would media look like in a world without, in a polyamoristic world? Like, what would people make movies about? I don't even know.
Healthy things. I don't know. And not even the movie could have been resolved with polyamory, but just if polyamory was the mainstream and people were given the tools to deal with, having romantic feelings for people outside of a monogamous relationship and how to deal with that and how to communicate those emotions effectively and, how to not feel threatened by it, that would have made a lot of the decisions, even if everything just continued monogamously, that would have made a lot of the decisions of the characters a lot easier if they had the tools to just talk about their emotions in a healthy way. But they didn't, because monogamy is so strictly enforced that they just all turned into dickheads and hurt each other. Thanks for listening. If you liked this episode, subscribe and leave us a review on your podcast app.
If you really like us, like us, send this episode to a friend, family member, partner, your boss, anyone else in your social circle, the people you want to convert to polyamory. Start a conversation.
Feel free to send us any comments or questions over social media.
So, thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.